Hi, friend. Hello. Hi, my babe. So good to be back with you. It has been such a while since I have recorded and kept up with you. And it's actually for many different reasons. But I thought I would come on here. I'm actually getting ready to go to my job. And I thought, hey, why not, come on here and talk about what's been on my mind for the past 2 weeks. And hopefully I share my story in hopes to connect with people that are going through similar situations. And yeah, let's chat. So if you're just seeing me for the first time, my name is Ekam. And on this channel, I share stories about, the creative, emotional, and spiritual frameworks that helped me take big leaps in my life. And the most recent big leap I took was packing up and moving my life from Nigeria to Canada. And thankfully, I'm now a citizen in Canada, so I feel like that paid off. But yeah, I just share on this channel, I share stories and tips and insights on those creative and spiritual frameworks that helped me take those leaps as well as sustained me during my taking of those leaps. But today I feel like I am going to segue into a much more serious topic around career and how our instinctual self can help us navigate our career lives and actually position us in places we really want to be in, places that are aligned to how we envision our career. How we want our career to take shape, right? And I feel like our instinct is a key player in getting us what we really, really want. So today, I want to talk about if you're in a role that is misaligned, what do you do, right? And I will be sharing at least 6 tips of what to do if you're in a role that is actually not in alignment with where you want to be in your career. And where you actually see yourself too. I feel like it's very important for us to be in positions that actually align with our career trajectory, aligns with where we envision ourselves to be, right? And to be in an environment that actually supports that. I feel like support is very, very important in your career. And it even goes beyond mentorship and all of that, sponsorships, but like just the environment, right? The company, all of that. It has to be an enabling environment. The departments you work in, all of that, it has to be an enabling environment for you to be in, especially if you're neurodivergent, which recently I have come to that realization that I am on the spectrum. So especially if you're that, I feel like this is even more important that you pay attention to. You have to pay attention to, how your body feels in that environment, in those tasks that you're assigned to do, how your body feels, how your mental feels, how your emotional state feels, what your instincts are telling you. I feel like it's very important. So this is how I plan to structure the video. I plan to, first of all, share my experiences of being in jobs that have been misaligned and what I did and what I'm doing because I'm currently in one. So this is actually a real life scenario that I'm going to be walking you through. And after that, I would segue into how misalignment shows up in your body and in your mental state. And then I will give you those 6 tips that I promised earlier of what to do if you find yourself in that kind of scenario or situation. So to begin, it's actually quite sad that I have been in this kind of situations for most of my career. I have worked in the corporate space if you hear anything going on in the background, that's my cat crying. He loves to do that in the morning, but yeah. So, yeah, as I was saying, I feel like for most of my career, I have been in roles that have been misaligned. Not because, not necessarily misalignment around the job title, because I've always, been in jobs that I went to school for. So I am a lawyer by training, but I segued into data privacy. So I have been in roles that mirror that education and training that I have received. Now, I feel like the misalignment has come in various situations, right? One being a toxic work environment where my boss earlier was quite abusive verbally and emotionally, and it led to so much mental fatigue and anxiety and panic attacks. So when I noticed those symptoms showing up in my body, actually one example was, I don't know what happened, but then it got into this environment where my boss felt comfortable yelling at me, so much so that I would have chest pains, like my chest would tighten so hard throughout the workday. I feel like when it got to that point, I knew that I had to do something about it. Like I had to leave that job immediately. And what I feel, when I look back at that situation, what I feel most sorry for is just how I did not have the right supports through, like family trying to help me get out of that situation, right? So that's why I say support is so important, both externally and internally. You need to have people that can help walk you through what you're going through, basically, help advocates, basically helping you to see, because sometimes when you're in it, you're not really seeing, the implications and the negative impact it's having on you. And so you need people that can help point that out to you, right? So unfortunately with that job, I did not have that. And I didn't really feel comfortable sharing with a lot of people because I was so embarrassed. I internalized it. I was so embarrassed. I used to cry a lot. So I just didn't feel safe, I would say, like, sharing that. But then the people I felt safe sharing with, they weren't really as forthcoming with telling me to get the hell out of there, right? So eventually I came to that realization, and luckily my Canadian process had come through. So it was a nice segue to leave the country and move here. But yeah, so when that happened, I was like, yeah, when I was having chest pains, really tight chest pains, I knew that I had to get the hell out. So that was at that job. And then the next job, I felt like the misalignment came from a lot, right? First of all, being in a new environment, the culture shock, everything. But I feel like I'm a fast learner. I can adapt to things pretty quickly. So within my first year, I had adjusted to the culture, work communications here and all the differences and nuances that you experience when you work in a new country, in a new, type of environment. But then I kind of noticed and realized the cracks, the misalignment cracks, right? In the sense that it wasn't really as comfortable, it wasn't as diverse, it wasn't as it just wasn't it, right? And how it showed up for me was in serious masking. I had to mask a lot, and that led to extreme fatigue. Like when I say extreme fatigue, like I would lay in bed and my feet would hurt so bad I wouldn't be able to get up. Like I would have to force myself to get out of bed. But sometimes it wasn't possible that I would have to call in sick. Like it was that bad. Like I think one time I had to take a whole month sabbatical just because the masking just depleted my energy levels. Like it was really, really bad. Like I don't think I experienced, actually now I'm beginning to get that exhaustion now. But back then I don't think I had experienced fatigue like that. And it was so funny because it was hybrid and I worked more from home, but still it did not matter because of the masking. So apart from the fatigue, I would also have headaches as well. And I already mentioned anxiety and panic attacks, but I feel like it also exacerbated my panic attacks, because panic attacks is something I have lived with because of severe trauma I experienced in childhood. So that's something I have been working through. But then I feel like in these roles, it just exacerbated the panic attacks where I would have them more often. And then with my current role, where the misalignment lies has been in pay. And I found out that, the pay compensation and structure is not equitable in my favor, that I was paid much lower than my peers. And it did hurt, right? Because I felt like, what does that say about how the company sees me, right? And then people were like, oh, did you negotiate and all of that? I was like, I mean, the question is fair, right? But then I kind of felt like it's an obvious thing. Like now, when you are searching for advice on, how to land a job and all of that, so some of the things they tell you is to negotiate your offer, right? So this is not something new. But then it was just so revealing to me how the company wasn't even budging on meeting me halfway in my negotiation point. And then something they also tell you when you're learning how to negotiate is not to push things and all of that, especially if it's a role you want to take. And then because I was coming off the heels of my sabbatical and I just wasn't really ready to go out there and do all the job hunting, because that can also be very exhausting. I just thought, okay. At the time, I did not know that they had lowballed me so bad. I thought, okay, let me take this job. And now that I reflect on it, I felt like I acted out of desperation. And I mean, it's even a bit unfair to say that because we live in a capitalist society, bills have to be paid, things are moving, bills are coming, whether you like it or not. So it just felt sad to be put in that position, right? But I took it, but then later on I realized all of these things. Another misalignment is the commute and the work schedule, right? The commute is pretty far from me, right? And I noticed that it's added another layer of exhaustion, right? It's like where when I'm back home, or it usually happens when I'm back home in the evenings, that it just adds another layer of exhaustion and just fatigue and a lot of mental fogginess. Like I would wake up in the morning and my brain is so foggy. I would wake up with, if I wake up with headaches, not, I actually have a headache right now as I'm recording. I'd wake up with headaches, I'll wake up with mental fogginess, and I'm just like, what is going on? But then I feel like these are indicators that my body is sending me to let me know that this is not where you're meant to be. And then when I sought advice from my friends and all of that, although some of them have told me, you need to leave as soon as possible. But then they realized that, okay, yes, bills have to be paid and all of that. But I feel like, wanting to pay your bills or having to pay your bills should not be the blocker to you doing things to help mitigate that situation, right? So these are some pointers and these are some tips that I feel can help with what you can do. And these are some things that I have also done in the past to kind of help me mitigate this kind of situation and what I also plan to do currently, right? So the first thing is to pinpoint exactly where the misalignment is, right? Just like I shared, where my own areas are in pay, in commute. And another thing I didn't mention was in the stability of the company and my career trajectory. That is something that is very important to me, right? Like if I don't see that my career can have a good upward trajectory in your environment, then I feel like that is not an environment for me. And even though my friends have advised me of which I agree, to look at it as a stepping stone to other things, of which I feel like most jobs are, right? Especially in this generation and in these times, like nobody's staying at the company for like 5, 10 years anymore. You know, no one is doing that, right? Like in my previous role, I was there for 3 years and I transitioned. Well, I took a sabbatical and transitioned to another role, right? In my first one, I spent 5 years, which I should not have. But now the advice is to spend 2 to 3 years at a company and, move on to another one. So if you find that in the company role that you're currently are, and there is no upward trajectory for you, then I feel like that is something you'd have to rethink. So that's the situation I find myself currently, is that there is no career trajectory, there for me. So I would say pinpoint exactly where the misalignment is. It could literally be anything, like just anything that does not feel right to you, that does not feel like you envision your career to be. And now the next pointer or indicator, actually pointer, sorry, is to ask yourself what you can do, right? Something I'm very passionate about is connecting deeply with ourselves, deeply with our intuition, deeply with our higher self. And I feel like they are there to assist and guide you as you navigate through life, especially as you navigate through difficult situations. So I would say consult with your intuition, ask it, what should you do about the situation, right? And if you're really paying attention, it will tell you. And this is where you're meant to take inspired action, right? Once your intuition or your higher self or God tells you what it is you need to do, please take that inspired action and do it. So in my case, my inspired action has been doing YouTube, right? Like I'm on here recording, sharing my stories with you. This is an inspired action. I have always felt this calling and desire to join YouTube, become a creator, share my story, build community. And this is exactly what I'm doing. Another inspired action has been to share. So I created I think I would say late 2024. I created a GPT tool that helps privacy lawyers. So the GPT tool is trained on 20 global privacy laws, including the EU AI Act. And it kind of helps privacy professionals understand at a glance what the legal requirements are for various use cases. So an inspired action has been to share that on LinkedIn because it's just been solely within my ecosystem of some friends that are in the field and with them, for my own personal use. But I have been getting this nudging. Actually, I spoke to a new friend yesterday, and yesterday being the 17th of March, and she just encouraged me. She's like, come, you should share this with a wider group, right? You should share this with a wider group, like let people know. And when I actually developed the tool, that is something that I wanted to do, to roll it out on LinkedIn and get people using it and getting them familiar with the tool. So now when she mentioned it yesterday, I was like, you know what, I should actually do this. I'm going to take this as a sign to make the move and get it rolling on LinkedIn. So that's another inspired action that, I have been nudged to take and I will take. So same for you, right? Like when your intuition tells you or, nudges you towards doing particular things, I feel like you should do that. Okay. And then the next pointer is that in some cases, you may actually have to leave that job before another one is lined up, right? Like in cases where you are experiencing extreme exhaustion, mental fatigue, even emotional exhaustion as well, then in those cases, you might need to leave, right? Just like I did with my previous role where I was extremely fatigued and I knew that I had to rest. When the opportunity came, when my spirits, team nudged me, oh my God, my cats are really going at it. When my spirit team nudged me to take that action, right, to leave, that's when I left. So I would say that in those cases, you might need to leave. And then if the decision is to leave before another opportunity is lined up, I would advise for you to understand your financials, understand where your income will come from while you are in that in-between period, while you're in that gap. And I have some ideas on things you can do to kind of help with that transition. One thing is to, maybe if you are not called to rest, because I was called to rest, if you're not called to rest, some things you can do is you could freelance, right? Freelancing is all the rage right now. Lots of people are doing it. I feel like it's a good way to, transition out of corporate, or just give yourself a cushion if you want to do that part-time, right? So I would say you could try freelancing. You could also become a VA, virtual assistant. That is something fun. I actually was looking into becoming a virtual assistant last year. I attended this lady's program. I think her name is Hannah, and she shares tips. I think she has her own academy and community where she trains people to become VAs, and she hosts master classes pretty often. I will drop a link in the description to her universe so you could see what she's working on. So understand your financials and things to do to support you in that in-between period. I mentioned virtual assistants. I mentioned freelancing. You could also be an independent contractor if you want to, still within the same field or line of work you're currently doing if you want. And you could also do part-time work. And then something I did to kind of help cushion me, because I didn't really have my financials all the way together, was I applied for government benefits. Now, if you live in a country where you are fortunate to have access or opportunities to receiving government benefits, then I would say that's one avenue to go. And if you have savings as well, you could use your savings, or if you have bonuses, that's a good thing to use as well. And then the last pointer is to actually socialize your wins, right? Or your portfolio on social media. LinkedIn, YouTube, if you feel inspired to do that, I would say do that, right? You should definitely put yourself out there as much as you can if you're not shy. And even if you're shy, I would encourage you to still try. There are lots of ways to put yourself out there without, maybe showing your face. You could do an audio podcast if you want, or you could just, do written text. You could do written text, right? You could do written text on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is mostly all written text. Yeah, I know there are some videos, you could put some videos on there, but YouTube is mainly videos. But you could also do shorts, talk for 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Like, you could get your feet wet that way and kind of build up your momentum and practice, being on camera and talking. So that's something you could do as well. I would really encourage you to explore that option. I feel like, we need to hear more stories. We need to hear unique stories. So I would encourage you to share your story. I want to hear your story. Okay. And I bet other people want to hear your story as well. So please get on camera. Don't be shy and tell us, share with us what's going on with you. And I feel like those are all the pointers I want to share. Don't give up hope, honestly. I know the situation can be annoying, can be a little bit frustrating, especially when you understand your value. And don't give up. Hang in there. Try different things you can. Most of all, things that are intuitively led, right? Because I want you to rely on your instinct and your spirit team to actually do this, to figure out what your next moves are. But ultimately, if you're in a similar situation as me where there is serious misalignment, I would encourage you to leave, right? Like, you need to leave. You need to go where you are going to be supported and valued, and where you're able to do your best work. That is very, very important. So I'll leave you with that for now. It is always fun hanging out with you. And leave me in the comments, your thoughts on what I have shared today, and any pointers you also want to leave me as well, right? Because I feel like we're on this journey together. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you for listening to, me talk to you about this. I really appreciate your support. And until next time, see you. Bye.